Somewhere out in the dark, there may be a planet where the night sky is a lie. Stand on its surface, look up, and you would see nothing. No stars, no moon glowing across a familiar face. Not one faint smudge of a distant galaxy. Just black, in every direction, unbroken, from one edge of the horizon to the other. Not the ordinary darkness between the stars we know, but a darkness that runs on and on with nothing in it at all. Everything you have ever seen with your eyes or through any telescope, every star, every galaxy, the whole glittering sprawl of the night would be gone, replaced by a black so complete it would feel less like looking up and more like staring at the inside of a sealed box. That's not a horror movie exaggeration. It's a real place, and there may be worlds inside it right now under skies that have never once shown a single star. For a creature born on that world, the universe would seem to end a short distance above its head. To catch even a lone point of light from the nearest galaxy, that light would have had to cross the emptiness for tens of millions of years just to arrive, and it would be almost the only thing up there. The closest feeling we have to it down here is being alone in the middle of the ocean at night. No land in any direction, no lights on the water, only you, a black surface, and the unsettling knowledge that solid ground might sit thousands of miles away or might not exist at all. That's roughly what it would mean to live inside the emptiest region we have ever found. This place is real. We have mapped it, measured it, and argued over it for decades. And the closer anyone looks, the stranger the thing becomes. What we are dealing with is a hole in the universe hundreds of millions of light years across, and no explanation has ever fully settled the matter. This is the Boötes Void, the loneliest region in all of creation, and one of the most quietly disturbing puzzles in modern astronomy. To understand why this empty patch unsettles astronomers so much, you first have to know what the universe is supposed to look like. On the largest scales, it's not random. Matter is woven into a vast structure called the cosmic web, a network of glowing filaments where galaxies string together like beads, wrapped around enormous dark hollows. Between the bright threads sit the voids, the empty rooms of the cosmos. Voids are normal. They are expected. The universe is meant to look like a sponge or the foam on a cappuccino. Solid walls of galaxies surrounding pockets of near nothing. What rattles everyone is not that the Boötes Void exists. It is how absurdly, impossibly large it is. We only know it's there at all because of a clever trick of light. As the universe expands, it stretches the light of distant galaxies toward the red end of the spectrum, and the farther away a galaxy sits, the more its light is stretched. Measure that stretch and you measure the distance. Do it for thousands of galaxies, and a flat picture of the sky slowly lifts into 3 dimensions. Near galaxies here, far ones there. In the early 1980s, the astronomer Robert Kirshner and his colleagues were building exactly that kind of map of this part of the sky. As it filled in, point by point, something strange surfaced. A whole region simply stayed blank. Where hundreds of galaxies should have printed themselves onto the chart, there was a clean, gaping hole in the data. They had not found a new object. They had found an absence, and its size stopped them cold. The numbers are hard to hold in your head. The void stretches around 330 million light-years from side to side. Light, the fastest thing that exists, moving at about 186,000 miles per second, needs 1/3 of a billion years just to cross it. Our entire Milky Way, a galaxy so wide that its own light takes 100,000 years to travel from one end to the other, could be dropped into the Boötes Void and lost inside it billions of times over. Put another way, this single empty region spans roughly 1/4% of the whole observable universe. That may not sound like much until you remember that the observable universe holds up to 2 trillion galaxies. 1/4% of everything handed over to almost nothing, all sitting in one place. That scale is the entire problem. a sponge is allowed small holes. It's not allowed one hole so vast it makes you question how the sponge holds together. If the universe were a cake fresh from the oven, the void would be one air bubble near the middle, so enormous you would wonder how the cake keeps its shape at all. Small voids are ordinary physics. A void this large sits right at the edge of what our models are comfortable explaining. Voids are not merely cosmic curiosities either. To astronomers, they double as laboratories. Because a void is so nearly empty, it's one of the cleanest places to watch the two great invisible forces of the universe at work: the dark matter that first spun the cosmic web, and the dark energy now stretching it apart. Studying how a giant like Boötes grows and hollows out is one of the ways we test our whole picture of how the cosmos came to be. And we don't have to travel all the way to Boötes to feel the pull of these empty regions. The nearest one begins right at the doorstep of our own galactic neighborhood. A lone dwarf galaxy has been clocked racing through it at about 135 miles per second, fleeting toward busier real estate, while our own local group drifts away from that void center at roughly 175 miles per second. Emptiness is not only a distant rumor out in Boötes. A slice of it sits right next door. The detail that turns a big number into an eerie one, though, is the Boötes Void address. This emptiness is not tucked into some far corner of the cosmos we can shrug off. Its near edge is a known mapped structure, and its center lies about 700 million light-years from Earth, close enough in cosmic terms to count as a neighbor. We're not staring at a curiosity on the far side of everything. We're staring at a hole in the universe just down the cosmic street. The word void oversells it a little because the region is not perfectly empty. And strangely, that is exactly what makes it more unsettling than a clean, honest hole would be. Working out how many galaxies should live in a volume that size is not guesswork. Across the rest of the universe, galaxies average out to roughly 1 every 10 million light-years. Run that spacing across the void, and it ought to hold something like 2,000 galaxies, a small city of them scattered in light across that enormous space. We've found about 60. Sit with that gap for a moment. Not 2,000, 60. More than 19 out of every 20 galaxies that should be there are simply missing, and no one can say where they went. The ones that remain are not spread evenly either. Most line up along one narrow strand threading through the middle of the emptiness, as though something swept the room and left only a thin trail of survivors behind. Later surveys went back, looked harder, and kept confirming the same lonely count. To feel the width of it, borrow a yardstick from home. Our nearest large galaxy, Andromeda, floats about 2.5 million light-years away, a distance so great its light set out before our species existed. That entire gulf, the biggest single hop on our local cosmic map, would cover barely 1% of the way across the Great Nothing. You could make that crossing 100 times over and still find almost nothing waiting at any step. What makes the count trustworthy is that people keep checking. The first report in the early 1980s was thin enough that some wondered if it was a fluke of incomplete data. A fuller survey followed a few years later, deliberately hunting for anything hidden in that region, and the emptiness held. Decade after decade, better instruments have swept the same patch of sky, and the tally has barely moved. The hole is not an artifact of looking too casually, it's what is actually there. There is a thought experiment that captures the loneliness better than any figure. If our own Milky Way had happened to form at the dead center of the Boötes Void, astronomers point out we might not have discovered that other galaxies even existed until well into the 20th century. Our neighbors would have been so far away, so faint, that for most of human history, the night sky would have looked complete and utterly alone. We would have believed our galaxy was the whole of creation, and every telescope built before living memory would have quietly agreed. The feeling the void gives astronomers is less like finding an empty desert and more like walking into a huge city at rush hour to find the streets deserted. Traffic lights still cycle from green to red over silent intersections. The shop signs still glow. Everything was built to hold millions of lives, and almost no one is home. You can't see what emptied the streets. You can only feel, somewhere low in your gut, that something did. On a clear night, you can even face its direction. Look toward the constellation Boötes, the herdsman riding high in the northern spring skies, and you're gazing straight out toward the emptiness. Those stars scattered there are all local, all ours, a few hundred to a few thousand light years away. The void itself begins far beyond them, invisible, a blank the human eye could never register on its own. The leading explanation is calmer than any vanishing act, and it deserves an honest hearing. Many astronomers think the Boötes Void is really several smaller voids that merged into one over cosmic time, the way soap bubbles press together and burst the thin films between them until a cluster becomes a single large bubble. On that view, the void is not a crime scene, it's a merger. Yet even that tiny answer leaves the raw fact standing, stubborn and strange. A region wide enough to swallow our galaxy billions of times over is very nearly, though not quite, empty. Before we go any further, one thing is worth stating plainly, because the internet rarely bothers to. Nothing about this void breaks physics. It fits comfortably inside our best model of the universe, with not a single alarm going off. And oddly, that makes the next part more fun rather than less. Because once the boring explanation is already in hand, the human mind cannot resist the wilder question anyway. If you actually wanted to empty out a region of space this thoroughly, on purpose, how would you even begin? A few people have taken that question seriously. The first idea sounds like science fiction, and the people who raise it would happily admit as much. It starts with a way of ranking civilizations by the sheer energy they can command, a ladder called the Kardashev scale. Down near the bottom crouches a species like ours, still burning fossilized sunlight and squabbling over a single planet. Far up the ladder stands a civilization that has learned to capture the entire output of a star, wrapping it in a shell of machinery to drink every last drop of its light. A structure like that is called a Dyson sphere, and a star wearing one would quietly fade from ordinary view, still burning but hidden from sight. It's worth asking why anyone would bother. The reason is plain hunger. Almost everything a civilization might dream of doing, computing, building, spreading between the stars, outliving the death of its own sun, comes down, in the end, to energy. And the richest source of energy in any neighborhood is the local star, pouring out more power every second than our species has used in its entire history. To a truly ancient culture, leaving all that light to spill uselessly into empty space might look as reckless as burning a library for a little warmth. Follow that thought to its unnerving end. A civilization advanced enough and hungry enough for power might not stop at a single star. Given enough time, it could spread outward across a whole region, boxing in sun after sun, harvesting each one until a stretch of sky that once blazed with galaxies dimmed toward total darkness. From the outside, across hundreds of millions of light years, we would never see the builders. We would see only the aftermath, a hole. There's a homely way to picture it. Watch mold spread across a slice of bread. From above, you only see the color creeping outward, but underneath, it's quietly consuming everything it touches. A civilization eating stars would look much the same from our distance, a slow darkening with no visible cause. And we can't simply zoom in to check. Even our sharpest telescopes, aimed across 700 million light years, cannot resolve the fine detail that would settle it. We're left reading the shadows, never quite the thing that casts them. To be completely clear, there is no evidence for any of this, none whatsoever, and almost no astronomer treats it as the real answer. The idea survives purely because it is a genuinely haunting way to look at an empty space, and because proving a negative across that much distance is close to impossible. The second idea is stranger in a quieter way, and it sits far closer to real physics. Most of the matter in the universe is not the glowing kind that builds stars. It's dark matter, an invisible scaffolding whose gravity shaped the cosmic web in the first place, gathering ordinary gas into the bright filaments where galaxies could catch fire. Voids are simply the region where that scaffolding is thin, where the dark matter never pooled. Ordinary matter had nothing to fall toward, no gravitational well deep enough to light a galaxy. Read that way, this emptiness is not a place where galaxies were taken away. It's a place where the invisible framework of the cosmos barely showed up, so the lights were never switched on to begin with. One idea imagines something building the darkness on purpose. The other suggests the darkness is simply where the universe forgot to build. Astronomers lean hard toward the second and toward the plane merging bubble story sitting underneath it. Still, standing at the eyepiece, staring into that much nothing, it becomes very easy to understand why the first idea refuses to die. That leads straight to the question people ask next, usually with a flicker of dread. If this void is out there, and if voids can grow, is it coming for us? Could the emptiness spread, swallow galaxies, and one distant day reach the Milky Way? The honest answer is calmer than the fear and somehow heavier for it. Voids do grow. As the universe expands, the thin regions stretch and hollow out further. There's scattered matter slowly draining out onto the bright filaments along their edges, the way water beads away from the center of a tilted table. The void is, very slowly, becoming even emptier. But it's no predator stalking toward Earth. Nothing out there is crossing space to hunt us down, and nothing is going to be dragged screaming into the dark. The real unease is subtler than any monster and much harder to shake. Dark energy, the mysterious force accelerating the expansion of the universe, is pushing everything that is not bound to us by gravity farther and farther away, faster with every passing age. Over billions of years, the galaxies beyond our local neighborhood will drift past the point where their light can ever reach us again. One by one, they will redden, dim, and slip over the cosmic horizon into permanent black. Think of the sky those far future astronomers will inherit, whoever they turn out to be. There would be no Andromeda rising, no distant galaxies to photograph, no glittering deep field to prove the cosmos is vast and full. Only our own galaxy, alone in an ocean of dark with every shred of evidence that anything else ever existed, having quietly left the observable universe for good. This is not a fear for any human lifetime or for any civilization we can't picture. It plays out over tens and hundreds of billions of years, spans that make the present age of the universe look like a first breath. But the direction is already set. The cosmos is slowly switching off its lights, one distant galaxy at a time, which means the future of everything looks a great deal like the inside of that void. Not as an invasion, but as a destination. Every galaxy, ours included, is drifting toward an old age of deeper and deeper isolation. The void is not something the cosmos is running from. It's a preview of where the cosmos is going. That is the quiet horror of the place. The loneliest region we have ever found is not an exception to the rules of the universe. Given enough time, it is the rule. So what do we actually do with a thing like the Boötes Void? This vast nothing will not threaten our planet, overturn our physics, or even be visited, colonized, or mined. Its whole power lies in what it does to our sense of scale and to our quiet confidence that we grasp in our position in things. Think about what it would mean to be born inside it. A civilization rising on a world near the center of that void would look up into an empty sky and reasonably decide that a handful of dim nearby stars was all there was. That universe would be small and local and silent. A people there would build their science, their myths, and their whole idea of home around a cosmos that was almost entirely an accident of where they happened to stand. The billions of galaxies blazing just beyond the dark horizon would be, to them, literally unimaginable. They would not be foolish for believing it. They would be doing exactly what we do, trusting their eyes and their finest instruments. and their eyes would simply be lied to them by omission. The lie would not come from bad science, it would come from where they happen to be standing. And that should make us wonder about ourselves. We assume the universe looks the way it truly appears. But each of us sits inside our own corner of the cosmic web, reading the sky we happen to be handed from the single window of our birth. The Boötes Void is a reminder, written across a third of a billion light-years of darkness, that the view from any one window is never the whole house. The most honest thing to say about the cosmos is that it is far larger and far stranger than the sliver we are able to see. There is something almost freeing in admitting that. To stand at the edge of the map and mark it honestly that here lies more than we can see is not a failure of science. It is the entire point of it, the willingness to be shown that the sky we were given is only a fragment of a far greater dark. If that idea grips you, that some of the deepest truths hide precisely where there seems to be nothing to look at, then there is one place in the cosmos that guards its greatest secret behind a wall of pure darkness. We went straight into it in our video on what's inside a black hole. Watch that one next.